Hello,
Hey,
how
how's
are
the
you?
audience? How are you?
I'm good. I love all of the art.
That's why I love to do visuals. Yes, and I have like my sculptures and other good things like that. But I'm also very used to when it's audio only, I can describe things that way people that are just hearing know what's going on.
I'm working my way towards starting to do these actually live, like live streams. And now this one's not going to be live, but I'm working my way towards setup on my end for all of that. However, I can post the video to everything except for Spotify, as I was saying. So that
Cool.
will be audio only, but for everyone listening on Spotify, hey, you should definitely go check out the video so you can see this artwork that she has behind here because
Yeah.
it's the first thing that caught my eye. I'm like, wow. I've followed you on Facebook. I had another profile. I deleted that profile, and somehow we wound up not being friends. And I heard you on the Truth Seeker, yeah, and the subject material of that drew me in. Because of my own story of being here in incarnation. And I just really connected with that. And the more I listened, the more I was like, wow, can I get you on my podcast? And the title of this is uh, going to be how to move swiftly, yet without haste through
All right.
life. Because I've noticed over the past 2 months, for me, everything has really slowed down, but I've been accomplishing a lot more.
Okay.
And within me, uh, I don't know, let's just call it the Holy Spirit for
Yeah. Beautiful.
simplicity's sake. Says to me, that's because you're moving swifter through time, but time seems to have slowed down for you because you're moving at a faster pace. And in that, you're able to accomplish more because you're focused more on stuff. And like with your art, you've accomplished a lot there. And I see your post, and you posted very recently. I think it was like a memory of this project. I forget exactly what it was called, but it was like this is the beginning of the birth of a new dimension
Yeah.
thing. And I was like, wow, that's so intricate, and it required a lot of work. So what can you share with my listeners about your work if they're not familiar with the truth? I've had Truth Seek on my podcast. I don't know if they caught you on his, but I'm very intrigued personally, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to sit here and chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here chatting with you. Thank you for reaching out and initiating this. And yeah, there's so much on the topic of moving faster. So okay, 100% of my work is based in time. And I'm Aurora. I'm a galactic walk-in. So usually I am a waveform presence that I'm usually not occupying or inhabiting the multicellular body of what it is to be a human in this realm. I've been here for a little over 20 years as a walk-in. It's been a steep learning curve. So I know about the world of pure time, and that's everything that I paint. These vortex shaped energy centers of our body that are shaped like donuts or toruses or tori. And now everyone is super familiar with that. But when I first came here 20 years ago, no one knew what a donut torus was. No one knew what any of these shapes were. And I tried to tell people about flying rainbow lasagna, and they were definitely giving me like side eye, like very extremely skeptical and kind of like, who are you? What are you? Where? Like, so this flying rainbow lasagna, I'm holding up my sculpture now for anyone who's audio only. It's a higher dimensional torus shape. And all of these are rainbow colored, and my work is all rainbow colored because it relates to pure light, like the frequencies of light. And light is also connected to time. And I bring this up because the sense of when you change your frame rate, like we have a frame rate of how we're perceiving reality. So in motion pictures, like the movies that you see at the movie theater, it's 26 frames per second. And if you speed up the frame rate, what you end up getting is a super high definition recording. And people experience this in their own internal perception when they do something to speed up. And that can be meditation or mindfulness. Sometimes it can be caused by an illness. Sometimes it can be caused by a molecule, like a particular molecule that people call hallucinatory. What it does is affect biochemistry to make you perceive time flowing at a different rate. And then what happens is you are able to get like the super slow motion, high definition camera of reality, to be able to see not only kind of like the Charlie Chaplin early movies of very herky-jerky movements that are disconnected, but things that are all very smoothly integumentally connected and with every single detail. Like you not only see the bird flying in its amazing motion across the sky, but you see every single speckle on its feather and every single dewdrop that's on all of the flowers that are around you. And so, I mean, I'm sure that you or your audience can relate to this. It's a moment of being supremely present, like totally focused on the now, totally embedded in the now. There's almost an intimidation factor because everything is so much. You're like, I can hear that butterfly flapping over there. I can smell that guy over there. Like, you know a lot, you know, even more maybe than what is really necessary. And my whole entire journey here has been about, let's say, informing humanity as humanity is awakening about the true nature of time. That time is this non-perceived yet thing that affects us very much. It's the clear medium through which we swim. Just like if a fish is swimming through a lake or a pond, it's perfectly clear. Like they might not even be aware of the substance or the medium through which they are transiting. But time is this ever-present, it's a supernatural miracle. It is inexplicable, and it is also alive. It's something that is upheld and is non-random, not only in the events that we experience, but in the sentience that it contains. So time is its whole own medium. I know I'm laying like just a lot of heavy stuff just right out in the beginning. Not
I love it. I really do.
Good. I'm doing a total data dump. And I'm also very
I think
telepathic.
that's what I'm here for. We're gonna put the podcast out there, but I wanted to talk with you. You know, I hopped on your live that day, and I was like, yes, I need more of this. So
Beautiful. Yeah, that we are becoming more aware of time itself, and then becoming aware of it and being able to consciously influence it, not just swim through it. And the analogy that I often use for that is like salmon swim upstream. They're not at the mercy of the stream like the time stream. And if you get enough salmon together, their wiggling, waggling type of, you know, locomotion actually changes the currents of rivers. It actually changes and directs time itself. This is the analogy for what humanity is experiencing. And I point to this painting that's behind me, and I have it on the wall behind me for a reason, like so that when I'm in these videos, I can talk about this. It's called Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. It's part of this birthing of a new dimension that humans and consciousness that is formerly has been submerged in time, kind of like tumbling to end over end, kind of being swirled around, not really being empowered and self-directed, are now becoming aware of time and aware of consciously participating and co-creating events in time, realities in time, and even like the health and vitality of your body, like what your body is shaped like and what you can do with your body. All of these are time events, and it moves beyond victimhood or a sense of determinism. Instead of victimhood, I could say like I'm holding up my hands, like it ain't my fault, blame somebody else. That was all written in the book beforehand, you know, and that relates to DNA, which is a lot of what my work is focused on. That DNA, for a long time, people looked at it and they said, if something is written in your DNA, it's just going to happen to you, like a bad disease or tendency that's in your family, like alcoholism or something like that. But it doesn't have to happen to you. Now scientists recognize that there is something called epigenetics. What that really means is there is a code that rules the code. Things are not merely determined or fated to happen to you. So DNA is a bridge that is a bridge of light and a bridge of time in your own body, and that it makes it very personal. Like you are personally connected to time. It's not just an abstraction, and literally your thoughts and your feelings, your levels of consciousness, and what you're intending to align with transforms the behavior and the dance of your DNA, which is not a static object but is constantly oscillating. And kind of like gushes you, like propels you through time into new and interesting directions. And this is what is happening right now. Like I said, I've been here for about 20 years and it's all been accelerating and coming to this crescendo in the musical symphony. Like I use that song, A Day in Life from the Beatles. Almost everyone knows that song. And at the end, it kind of goes like, ka-chunka, chunka, 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 dun, dun. And we're heading up to that moment in events. So if you've been feeling like a time acceleration, or if you've been feeling an increase in bliss, which is just like the frictionless existence state where you flow effortlessly from one moment to the next moment, or from one feeling state or event or behavior to the next event or behavior, like that's not just you. And that's a very positive symptom of, I point to that painting, the whole entire planet. This is what people call planetary ascension.
Yeah.
And it is a leveling up of everyone who's here, not just humans. Like I have a little dog who's in her dog bed. It involves all animals, insect life, plants, our entire ecosystem. Everything begins to move at this faster rate. So that I know this is like a super long intro to who and what I am. So I'm a walk-in, and I am here as part of, let's say, planetary protector and planetary guardian, really DNA guardian, so that humanity can go through this process even amidst what I would call like criminal circumstances. Like what is happening right now, like just like if you were a little child and you were growing up, like you're supposed to have like your baby blankie and your nice crib and your toys and all the good stuff and books to help you learn how to read. But what if you're growing up someplace war torn, like whatever, wherever there's the current war of the day, and instead like don't have a real crib, you don't have real toys, you're not learning your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and basically, you know, you don't know if you have enough food, you're just trying to stay alive. That is humanity right now. And I come from this higher galactic level of really civilized consciousness that is totally loving, totally based in unity consciousness, totally Christ-centered. And when I use that word, I'm really being non-denominational and not about earthly religion, totally about that devotion to that level of consciousness. And when I or we at that level look at what's going on here in this war-torn world, we're like, those are like souls that are trying to ascend, like babies trying to develop, like vulnerable young consciousnesses that are trying to go in the right direction. And then we see all of these things that are happening that are totally unjust, that I'm like, that is not right, that's not supposed to be happening, because you should be able to, or allowed to, you should be free. You should be free, period. You should be free to explore this level of transcendence in your consciousness without having to like block out this and hold off this and protect myself from this and shield myself from this. Like ascension is really supposed to be this amazing, like the way that a flower unfolds. Like you don't have to have resistance, and you can do this beautiful opening up to God and to highest consciousness, and to be like, universe, like I'm open, like lay it on me. But instead we have all these things that are technological inhibitors of consciousness, or things that are frequency waves that are not natural frequency waves, that are giving a confusing or erroneous signal to our body, harming your trajectory through time. And that isn't even just about this group of nascent souls, like this group trying to achieve liftoff. When you harm time, that has reverberative effects, kind of like on the ripples of a pond, that go outward into parallel dimensions, other levels of reality, futures and pasts, and it becomes a very, very, very big crime. So please think of yourself and everyone who's here listening as coming of age in a very war-torn, criminally unjust system, where you are trying to cultivate your own consciousness in freedom. And there are so many different factors that are stacked up against there. So basically all the work that I do is meant to be holding the door open for humanity's freedom, giving you the option to choose for yourself. I offer options and consciousness like pathways, but I never force you to take those pathways. And in every single way, this represents the value system of true highest galactic society, where everything has to be based in total honesty, total authenticity, total consent, that you can't lie to someone or fake it or wear a fake mask and say like, I'm really this, and then later on after they commit, after the marriage, then you take it off like, no, I'm actually a horrible person, and now you're committed and you're never getting out of it. Nothing of truth can be built on such a rotten foundation. So yeah, I'm here as a representative of that. And you mentioned my artwork. That's everything that I do. So I've been doing visual artwork for a very long time, like maybe the past 18 years or so. And then I also do auditory artwork, and it's all harmonic. So I also got into music. And then I also do a lot with dance and body cultivation, because that's really the ultimate, the instrument of your body and your own DNA, being able to do this flying rainbow lasagna dance that is a higher dimensional oscillation. So it's even beyond like the movement of your elbows and your knees. It is really an oscillation of your DNA, so that you're singing this song or vibrating in this new way that is totally transformative. And it's never been done before. And part of the strength is the unpredictable nature of what it is. So that way it's like unhackable. Like if you don't know exactly what's going to happen, you can't prevent it or hack it or exploit it. So I teach it and exemplify it to others, inviting others to explore and generate their own unpredictability nature, like their own random number generator. Press the big red button, generate something new, and see what pops out. And there's a lot of divinity in all of that, in the new unexplored patterns that are harmonically integrated that come up. Like, you're a musician, and I really appreciate the work that you've done, that you've released under Hawkeye. And you know what it's like when you are collaborating, like sometimes things happen in the moment when you're like, oh, I didn't mean for that to happen, but that happened, that sounded good, or you're bouncing off of someone else. This is like musical collaboration on a galactic scale between all of these different consciousnesses, all of these different organisms, the organisms in the ecosystem of Earth. You're like one player in a very, very large symphony of consciousness. And when I talk about all of that, then it's like, soup, like, sign me up. This sounds awesome. Because that's like the brochure of everything that is supposed to be going on. But then when your soul actually gets here, then you're like, Aurora, I have complaints. Like, please call the Cosmic Complaints Department, because this is not what they said it was going to be like in the brochure. And we are both laughing knowingly. Yeah.
We both know. You know,
Truly.
you said that we're kind of birthed or incarnated into this war zone.
Yeah.
And inside of this war zone, we're kind of thrown out of sync with what time actually is. And I think what's happening with me is I'm getting back in sync with the actual organic timeline, if you will, amidst this world filled with haste, and all of the haste that, you got to pay your bill on time, you got to go to work at this time, you got to do this and this and this, and rush and rush and rush, so that you can never have time to think or breathe or do anything other than just panic inside your mind all of the time. And that's what I mean by I'm now moving swiftly, without haste. And in that, I used a different terminology, but mine's very similar. You get into what I term as the serenity flow state of existence, just to myself. And you hit on that. And just to tie this in for everybody else that's listening, I have a book here. In this book, everybody that can see, it's called The Courage to Change Everything. Again, from Truth Seekers Podcast, the guy that wrote it, Ken Foster, the first podcast I ever listened to. This guy was on it. He was sharing how to cultivate that courage to change everything. And it just really spoke to me. And afterwards, 3 fully formed ideas dropped into my head. That's Omniversal Media, the Beneath the Surface podcast, and also a novel series titled The Unveiling that I'm writing. Each and every day of the year, day 106, day 107, today's day 106. I have not read it yet, so let's just see what it says here. Just to tie everything in.
Great.
Hmm?
Just encouraging you.
It says, it is curious that physical courage should be so common in the world and moral courage so rare. A quote from Mark Twain. Have you given some thought lately as to who you are and what you stand for? Are you a person of high conviction, or do you have double standards? These are questions every successful leader eventually asks. Many people apply their standards to others, but neglect to use the same criteria for themselves. I see this time and time again, where a leader sets one standard for their subordinates and lives by another. The same shows up with parents who tell their children to live one way while doing just the opposite. Double standards of what being out of integrity is all about. How can anyone be in integrity if they don't walk their talk? Now, this is not an easy thing to do always, but it's not about being perfect. It's about setting a standard and doing your best to live up to it. If you get off track, then reset the standard and start over again and again until it becomes a part of who you are. This is the way to build a successful and fulfilling life, which is beaming with lasting friendships, wealth, health, and happiness. And today's day 106 of the year, 2023. We're talking about who we really are. Can we authentically be ourselves, or are we going to get caught up in the haste of life and wear that mask, that we have to present to the world, or that we've been trained to think that we are? Because if so, then we're going to be, I think there's a verse in the Bible that says something about being double-minded, and trying to hold on to two opposing concepts. You can't, there's so many verses in there that say basically the same thing. And how do we become authentic in our beingness here on earth? How do we come to the realization where our brain's able to process the fact that we're not just whoever is on our government ID card, that we're so much more, or that our soul aspect, or the life within us, the identity within, beneath the surface. How do we get to the point of where we're comfortable enough with ourselves to tell ourselves that truth and to really walk and live in that? Because my name's Ethan Womack, according to the thing, but the name within me is Hawkeye, and it has to do with the eye of a hawk and having the vision of that. And you speak of this being a war zone, and my soul essence incarnates into different star systems when wars get out of alignment, things go too far, and I come to end the wars. Why? Because of that ripple effect that it has all of the system. And I know that about myself. The official title there, if I was to make it up in English, would be Hawkeye, the Ancient Star Walker, Warlord of Light.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I don't come to fight. I come to say the fight has already ended. And the reason behind that is because of what's at stake on the grander scale, not just universal, but omniversal, because these things ripple out, as you said. But that's a very difficult thing for somebody raised in America. Oh, their name is this, go to school, this, and now you dropped out of school. Well, now you got this and that, and great music, but go to work so you can pay your bill. It's fairly hard to be authentic and true with myself, especially if I'm not going to make time to do my podcast, to write my music, to go on tour like I'm going to do in the fall.
Good for you.
To interact and connect with other people who have had deeper realizations of self, and they've kind of, I don't even like to say that they've disconnected from consensus reality. I like to think that they've rather reconnected with actuality. And that the words that you speak, and all of what you've said thus far and everything else that I've seen you put out just speaks volumes to me. And I'm like, that's someone who remembers.
Totally. It might be because I'm a walk-in, that I didn't do like the amnesia wipe that people get when they are birthed, but I came in to this physical vessel remembering everything about what it's like in the place where I am outside of time, space, and dimensionality. And I also vibrate there all the time. So for me, being here for 20 years, it hasn't been like cut off from that level of knowingness for 20 years. Like I literally cohabitate at that level. And that I also feel like that's like when you're able to get out to the grocery store and everyone else like can't quite get out, like I will get out, I will get avocados, I will bring them back and I will give them to you. So that's a lot of what I do. I inspire people for them to remember themselves. Like I come from a time place where like death is not a thing. And I also come from a time place where lying is not a thing. Like when you activate this highest self aperture, this chakra on the body, that is Christ consciousness, you can see everything. Like you can read a person like a book. You can see everything that they've done as a soul up into this moment and radiating forward. And it's also, it's not done out of judgment. It's all done out of love. So you can see like, yeah, like that was a mistake and that was a thing you did wrong. But then you also see, here's where you fixed it and here's where you learned and here's where you picked yourself up. So it's perceiving the totality of a person, but like lies or lack of integrity simply do not exist at that level of reality. A lie is like, you know, when you see a little kid like pulls their hoodie over their head and they're like, you can't see me. It's like, no, like you can't see me, but I can see you very easily. So the sense that we're here in this world now where there are lots of lies. And I remember like crushingly the first moment I was exposed to a lie when I first came here as Aurora. And you guys might have had that experience in early childhood, like 3 or 4 years old or whatever it was. Here, my dog has arrived for the video. She's right down here. There we go. That's master teacher cheeky. Yeah. But you might have remembered, like maybe someone told you like you'll get a lollipop or whatever, something will happen. And then it didn't happen. You're 3 years old and you're like, they lied. Their actions didn't match their words. And that causes like a crushing inside, that realization, because I think all of us have this angelic heritage. Like I said, I think I'm here to remind you of where you really came from and who you really are. But you all know that lies are not how we're supposed to do things. And that speaks to that reading that you gave us inspirationally from the daily book, to be able to say, what is integrity? Integrity is when your actions match your intentions. And sometimes you set a high bar and then you're like, you don't like, you're like, I never eat sugar, but then like you find yourself eating sugar. You're like, okay, most of the time, I always never, but you try not to and you do better. But that's very, very different than if you tell someone, I will give you a lollipop, and then it's an overt lie and there is no lollipop, because that is a type of erroneous information. And everything that I am aligned with and that I support and uphold and not fight for, but, you know, like battle for the sovereignty of, it's all about being in alignment with divine truth and this perfect cosmic architecture. And when I paint my paintings, they're non-arbitrary. That, you know, you can make lots of things that are very pretty patterns, and that's not what my stuff is, even though I love decorative art and I want to encourage people endlessly, like, make decorative art, explore yourself. You don't, not everything has to be like perfectly calibrated cosmic truth. Yeah. This is my job, because I'm also big on just like respecting everybody's uniqueness and where you're going in your life. But I came here with a very unique mission where I'm like, okay, I have to represent this cosmic truth. So I have a high standard for me to be able to make sure that everything is calibrated correctly, and I make it, you know, within like whatever, a tiny micron pen, as small as I can make it, for the purposes of being able to conform to this mathematical, almost divine abstract truth. And when I share that, then I feel like it is like a seed crystal that is dropped into a super saturated solution, that then it's a reference point of truthfulness, that then all of these other things can cluster around and be based upon as a foundation of truth. And that's what this integrity is. It's the divine thoughts, the divine mind of God, like a very, very, very much larger consciousness level. That I always say this to in everything that I share. Spoiler alert, it's you. Like when we talk about the sun and the stars and the network of light and God consciousness, it's always like, you think like it's so big, it's so grand in scale, it's so up there, out there, but spoiler alert, it's you. And it's really, those stars are you looking down at your mortal self here, and God is really you as like this super evolved, incredibly wise version of you after having been through so many experiences of refinement. And then also like not abandoning yourself, but really like kind of reaching back through time, or like sticking your hand down into the fish tank and being like, this is going to need a nudge in the right direction. Like, I'm going to get into the fish tank, nudge, and to be a part of that perfect continuum of time events. And that's also what you were talking about in your own personal life, trying to be respectful and in alignment with the natural time events that we want to be a part of, as opposed to the secular and human created, often erroneous time events of what time is something happening on the TV? Do I have to be at work at a certain time? Is a bill or a tax thing have to be paid at a certain time? All of that is very artificial time. And our true time is the time that is like about the seasons of nature, what you feel like doing in the morning. Like, you know, like when I first get up in the morning, I feel like, yeah, like it's time for me to make music. And then like like usually like whatever 11:30 p.m. I'm usually like, yeah, like I'm tired. Like it doesn't feel like time to make music to me. Like you have a natural rhythm. Some people are night owls, they're different than me. But or like doing a workout. I'm like, get up in the morning, do the workout first thing, and go at 11:30 p.m. I'm like, my muscles are tired and I don't really feel like doing a workout right now. Like there are natural patterns of time that would be our natural scheduler if we were in a pristine world and if we were not domesticated. And it's not bad to be domesticated. Like my dog is a beautiful domesticated dog. She's a Chihuahua. She's not a wild wolf. She doesn't run around, eating deer in a public, like a wild park somewhere or something like that. But being domesticated as a human is very different than our wild form in terms of being a feral consciousness. That when we are feral, like we don't work for money. We don't sell our time for money. We do what we need to do from moment to moment because kind of like, like F you to anything that wants me to do something that is not divinely ordained. Like we follow that divine ordinance throughout everything and nothing can take us off that path. And that is literally how you live forever. So live forever is not just like take a convenient elixir, something glug, 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 you drink it once.
Yeah.
Live forever means you choose to do certain behaviors and dance steps through time that you never mess up and you never stop and you never can compromise it to someone else. Like, I will pay you $5 to stop doing your perfect divine dance through time. You're like, no, it's totally not worth it. It's not worth it in any way.
Yeah. And they put us in these traps. I don't know who they are, but it doesn't matter. But we get put in these traps of like, oh, now you have this bill, it's $5, and if you don't pay it, this and that, so you better take their deal and stop, and it's all the same thing all over again, and it's catching you up in that hastiness of life so that you can't slow down and move with the flow of I can look at myself back on my life, and I can see different moments in time where I would intuitively use that hawk's eye view to see through time and see what was coming down the line. And I wouldn't believe it. It's hard to even pay much attention to it until I'm focused in on being myself. But I can look back and I have a track record of I knew this was going to happen here at this point, and this point, and this point. And I even know the why. The why is so that I would be ready to know, okay, this thing that I told myself was going to happen happened, even though I didn't really believe it. And since it happened, I'm able to move into who I need to be at this point here. Because without that, I would not have accepted the role that I needed to play at point B, unless I saw point A before I even started counting, if you will. And it's all very precise in this and that, and I see like that's the flow that I need to be in, so that I can be in the places where spirit guides me, so that I can interact with the people who need a nudge from me in the physical, or through my music, or through my art, or through the conversations, or through the way that I can connect dots between this piece of art from that person over there and this artist here and this speaker here, and draw a picture with words and say, don't y'all see the symmetry, the synergy of life? How it's all, these three people don't know each other at all. They're all saying the same thing. It's all outlandish stuff. How are they saying the same stuff that's on your mind in the back of your head that you're not even allowing yourself to believe? And I get to play that role, and it's very important because not a lot of people are doing it, but a lot of people need someone to paint the picture, if you will. And it's just I sometimes think that like I created this whole podcast thing not only for other people that will benefit from it in a synchronistic manner, but also a big part of it is having these conversations with souls like you, that otherwise it would be some kind of in this fast-paced world that we live in, it would be some kind of an imposition or strange context, instead of having something that's just open mic discussion about whatever loose topic that we come up with. And it's really beautiful to me, and I see even where I'm at now, I see where I will be at 6 months from now. Yet as excited as I am to see all of that unfold, I notice that there is a very, my days are slowing down. I'm experiencing more of life as I'm living it. And I'm also very aware of how short this human lifespan is. And instead of feeling anxious and so focused on these future events and overwhelmed by how do I accomplish this, this, and this to get, I'm just slowing down. And I notice when I go to work in the mornings, I I used to wake up and before I knew it, much late. Now I wake up and I think, okay, I've waited around long enough and I gather my things to go out of the door. And I know, oh, I have 25, 35 minutes left. How I, my perception of time is slowed down so much, and I'm very grateful for it. Even though I see this in the future, I'm very excited to get there. I'm not rushing towards it. Um, and to me, that's what living your life is all about. Instead of having life,
Yeah.
your life lives for you by people that are pushing you around with this demand and that demand, and you know, and how can I be a part of the solution unless I'm going to allow for uh, the beauty? I just term it as the beauty in capital letters. The beauty to solve my own riddles and problems, and
Beautiful.
how can I be the solution unless I am the solution? Um, so it's it's very interesting to me that because not a lot of people are as outspoken as you are about being a walk-in.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that? Like just whatever you have to share on
I
that.
would, and thank you for asking and asking so respectfully. There are actually a lot of walk-ins here in this time place now, and it's because of missions on planetary ascension, and everybody's got their own unique mission. And so for some people, I wouldn't say it's covert, but it's more private. Like I know someone and their father got in a car accident, and the original ego state of their father died and passed on, but a person walked in and he ended up becoming a healer, but he doesn't end up necessarily telling everyone like, hi, I'm a walk-in. He just does his work. So what is really important to recognize and acknowledge is like, I joke, like I'm out of the closet about it, but there's no judgment. There's no judgment at what any level of sharing or disclosure people would like to do about who they are and what they have experienced and what they know about themselves. So this is just me fully being authentic in my truth. I came in on October 8th of 2001. So it was right after the events of 9/11, and the events of 9/11 were totally, I'm making a giant tearing motion now, a tearing of the fabric of time,
Yeah.
space, and consciousness. And then also a lot of turbulence, a lot of time turbulence. And I came in that aftermath. And that's what this flying rainbow lasagna hyper torus or higher dimensional torus shape is all about, a new genetic dance movement that has allowed me to oscillate in here and do these nudges. And I love that you nudge, and we nudge each other. We nudge each other in the fish tank and be like, remember your God, remember your God. So it's been a part of my mission and purpose in being here to be authentic from the beginning. Like I knew who I was as soon as I came into this body. I knew what had happened to the previous occupant, who, by the way, was like a good person who didn't deserve to die. It was all very cosmically unjust. And that's why I came in and took this life, like as a way of rectifying that. And I honor her soul and I honor her journey, but I'm very, very different than her. And so that's also like, I was very truthful to all like friends and family and relationships that the person who used to have this life and this body was in as soon as I came in. And I'm like, I'm a different person. This is what happened. And some people could not accept that. And it was also like, there was not initially a lot of acceptance from her biological family. Now it's 20 years later, and I'm happy to say, like, I held the door open. We've done a lot of healing of the family dynamic, and now I have a very good relationship with them. So I say this also to anyone else who might be struggling with biological family, birth family, acceptance of who you are, especially if you're non-neurotypical, or if you are aligning with being a star seed or a walk-in, or feel otherworldly in any way. Like it can be hard for other people to know like how to at what you are, an undefined quantity, and we do not know what to do with you. And just
That's
try
why I
to
was asking you to share.
totally, totally. So
It's not everybody's job to say, hey, I'm this, because their job is to heal this or that. But
yeah.
I know that there's a lot of people out there that
Oh, yeah.
feel, because they contact me privately. They're like, I know I've been following your stuff, this and that. What do I do about this and that? I'm like, yeah.
That's initially there was a lot of rejection of me being Aurora, and even presumption of mental illness. And so, first of all, to my brothers and sisters, if anybody out there has mental illness, you are loved. If you have mental illness or emotional instability or whatever is going on with you, you are loved, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just had to make a very clear distinction that what my experience was not a psychiatric disorder, but was a spiritual experience. And I actually spent the first couple of years that I was here in human form just proving that to people. And my artwork went a long way to doing that, because my artwork is very organized, very mathematical. And I came in with all of this, that this is really the information that I contain. It's kind of like woven within me. And I started making these very detailed drawings and diagrams from the very beginning. And I actually have a stack of notebooks like this tall of all the things that I did, in the first early years. And then I started to develop them into paintings. And I really initially had to prove to the people around me that I was very grounded, very orderly, that all of my assertions were not self-conflictory. And as I made this artwork, little by little, people started to recognize, like, okay, like, she's definitely together, because I can comprehend what it is like from other people's viewpoint of, like, I literally came here. Wait, I'm holding up now. This is a walk down memory lane, everyone. This is the original flying rainbow lasagna that I ever first developed, like my prototype, that's made out of this children's, like Sculpey clay. And I cooked it in my home oven. And I made this literally in like 2003. So I had only been on Earth a couple of years. And I used to stand on the street corner in Woodstock, New York, and just offer it to people. Just be like, I'd like to tell you about this. And of course, everybody like gave me the craziest looks you can imagine. They're like, who are you? What are you? Why are you doing this? And because from where I come from, this place of total generosity, where when you get a great idea or inspiration or whatever, you just want to share it and gift it with others. It is your gift in this world. And I faced a lot of skepticism, and people would be like, who are you? And I'd be like, well, I'm an interdimensional visitor. And they're like, you're like E.T., where are you from? And I had to say, no, I'm not from a coordinate, like a space-time coordinate. I'm from a consciousness collective, and that we are non-technological, and that we are like a waveform, like music. And this, like, already, like, heads were exploding. People really couldn't take it. Now it's 20 years later, and people are much more open to this. People have leveled up so much that it's not so difficult. So I faced a lot of challenges at, like, I mean, like, I'm an outsider, and I didn't understand how to navigate the world of lying, greed, and commodification. That is just what everyone here thinks is normal. And also, I'm definitely non-neurotypical, because I came into this body, there's brain damage from what killed the previous occupant. So I'm non-neurotypical in my perceptions and my articulations. Now I'm very articulate, but I used to not be very articulate. And I
You're
used to
extremely
stumble.
articulate.
Thank you. Because you know what? I have worked on it. I really had to learn to expand my vocabulary. I had to practice pronouncing words and saying things so that they would come out the way I wanted to. And I focus a lot of my mental energy on making my mouth connect effectively to my brain. Because people who know me in life, they know as soon as I get stressed out, like, I don't even talk anymore. I'm just like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't even say full sentences. That's the first thing that breaks down. Yeah.
On that note, I would like to share some lyrics of mine, because they fit in with the context of this and everything that you were saying. People talking about mental illnesses and that, and through your art, you're able to kind of prove and say, like, no, it's not that. Here's this. I mean, how do I articulate this in a language that you can understand? Because what I've got coming through doesn't come through in English, and this and that. Um, Me too. I've been, since I was a child. The stigma of mental illness has been pushed on me by various people that probably shouldn't have done that to me, very unjustly. But it's something I've had to kind of resist for most of my life, until at some point they left me alone, and it became clear that, okay, he's not insane. They can't play that. And we're talking about being articulate and having to train yourself. you know, how to train your tongue. And so when I started writing these rap lyrics, I'd never written rap. I was always just playing the guitar. This and that, and I had to teach myself to sing, and I never liked the sound of my voice. And I was writing these big long articles and books on Facebook, and nobody would read them. So I got really frustrated, and I said, I'll just write rap, and I'll still say the stuff to people, and it'll sink into their consciousness, and they'll probably sing along with it and really like it. And I realized I don't know how to rap. And I had to practice over and over and over again to train my tongue to be able to work, to say all of these words, to be able to say it in the right cadence with the rhythm, to switch it up. And the song, this is on my upcoming album, Shadow Bandit, will be out in October of this year, right when my tour starts. But the title of the song is Crystal Clear. And I use a K for crystal and K for clear because I'm talking about crystal as in Christos and Cristalla. But this part of the song here said, yeah, there you go.
I'm holding an actual crystal for everyone.
I've got some other stones here all over the place. But it says linguist, and now it's rap music, so there's some obscene language in here. But I hope it doesn't offend you. Is what I'm saying.
I'm fine with that. Tell anyone with small children to throw them out the window immediately. I'm joking.
Linguistical mystical script that's cryptic and mythic. Whenever shit like this is written, all of heaven's enlisted in assisting with specific information. Like, listen, did you know if you're a patient of mine, your new prescription is wordplay competitions with competent, comprehensive, fully formed, complex, interesting new sentences. All this wicked verbiage that you've heard this bird come deliver isn't just silly worded, nonsensical lyric filler, because I can say what I mean however I want, and the language reconstructs itself around the things that I've thought. And whenever I endeavor to say clever shit, watch how fluidly this druid speech then proceeds to concoct amazingly understandable, easy concepts that flow together like I've only ever been gifted with prose, but I'm rhyming lines that don't belong and making them into a song. How many times should I remind you I'm divine and nothing's wrong?
Beautiful. So well written. Really
It's just so clear.
Beautiful.
And that's what I'm with my art. That's what I'm able to bring through and say, am I still insane? And obviously the answer is that's a rhetorical question because I'm not. And all of the intricate stuff that you can bring through there, it's really amazing, isn't it? How, again, the Holy Spirit can, over the course of, you said 20 years, change the fabric of the mindscape of people across the planet. And now they're accepting of what back then they couldn't accept, because right when you said you came in with the 9/11 stuff, right after that, they ripped open a very dark portal. And it's kind of like you came back in and you're like, here, let me recalibrate it.
Absolutely. You know? Absolutely. I was having a conversation in 2016 with someone who is a long-term friend who saw my artwork, and my artwork like hasn't been out there that much. Like, you know, I haven't had that many shows or whatever, but was in my living room / studio and looked at it. And he was like very overwhelmed and very emotionally uplifted by it. This is a guy like maybe in his 60s or whatever. He's been on Earth for a while. And he was like humanity just isn't ready for this. It's just not ready. But he was like, but what would it be like to be in a world where humanity is ready for this level of intensity of, you know, flat out abstract information? Totally. And so that was 2016 or so. Now it's 2023. I think humanity is ready for it. Like, we thought that it would be 50 years. This guy thought that he would be long dead and in the grave before humanity would level up to that point. I'm seeing so much acceptance, celebration, and thirst and hunger in a positive way for this, the type of information that I share and the intensity of it. Like, I do this class now. I teach several different type of online classes, and I have for a long time, but I have a new curriculum. It's called Path of Light. And it's all about like what photons and the light field is really doing, like what these waveforms are really doing, even on the level.
How would people find your class?
Oh, yeah. So you can find it on my website. I'm flyingrainbowlasagna.com. And I would say you should message me through there because it's so new. It doesn't have its own little like bullet point. It doesn't have its own little theme tag underneath my courses.
We'll be sure to put that in the description. I just wanted to.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. And because it is my job, Joy, to receive this information from the sun and the stars and then send it out to people. And so I have this whole new curriculum that I got from connecting my tendril of awareness to the stars at night, having a conversation with that presence of consciousness. And then this abstract energy comes into me. And then I'm like, how am I going to put this into words or diagrams or pictures to be able to share it with others? So the point that I was coming to is that I thought that it was too much for humanity. I'm like, people's brains are going to liquefy and float out through their ears, and people are going to like, this is too much. I'm going to fry their brains. And so that was and then of course, like I do sun gazing every morning. And one morning the sun was like, you don't have to be perfect. Like just try, just try, just get started on it. So I've taught this class 2 times previously, like as an 8-week long session. And both times I found students and people that were they gravitated to the information so much. They were so receptive to it. It was not too much heavy lifting. It was not too intimidating at all. They totally took to it because it's a new way of modeling what light is doing. Instead of saying that light is like bouncing off of the surface of an object and bouncing into my eye, or that it's being emitted from a star, what we're really perceiving is that all light is one photon that all overlaps with each other, and that there are these ballooning reality structures that are time space that we experience, but then also we cause those balloons to kind of collapse and be drawn back in through the cognitive event of our perception. So when you really look at light and the sun and the stars and time, what you see is like a central epicenter with all of these amazing like loops that expand, but then they come in, and there's a rhythmic expansion and contraction in all dimensions. And that's what we're really living within. It's very different than the 5 senses reality structure.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are totally ready for that. And that's why I think these insights and forms of information come to me, that it's my job. I'm a visionary artist. Like I have an inner vision, I see it, I feel it, and then I'm like, how can I make it as a thing that others can experience? So yeah, we're at that point that we thought it was going to take 50 years to achieve, but I'm so happy everything keeps on accelerating, including human development. And all of this is like the precursor or the weightlifting that you do in the gym to get ready for the actual marathon. Like we're gonna go, we're embarking on.
It's funny you say that, because
Tell me.
before I got ready for this,
Yeah.
this is going to sound strange to people listening, but what happened. Spirit said you need to go work out before.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I didn't know why. I just did it, and here we are.
Yes.
But there's so much that came up while you were talking there, and I don't know.
Rewind and go back.
I'm going to try to bring it to make it concise here. Omniversal Media, Beneath the Surface podcast, and then a story called The Unveiling. It's a fictional novel, fantasy, and I'm still writing it. The first one is called First Light. That's the title of the first book. And there's a character that starts off in the what do you call it? The prologue, or the little part before the book starts that's in there, the story before the story. And the character's name is Halana. And in the mythology of the story, she is what is considered one of the sun speakers. There's this order of sun speakers, and they kind of control the political, religious government of the whole of the world, and none of them are real. And they all, it's just this stuff. But then the sun starts speaking. She's in the luminous halls, and she's hearing this voice and saying, "We're talking to you because you're the only one listening." And she's referred to as a sun speaker, and you're talking with the sun. And so here we are on Omniversal Media's Beneath the Surface podcast talking about my book, The Unveiling, and you don't know any of that information over here that I got in my backdrop, but you're talking about speaking with the light codes, and I just think that's beautiful. So
That's
more on that later, folks. We'll come back to that when I write the book or whatever. The second thing is, you think humanity's ready now, and we're 2023, and in 2009, when I The context of my spirituality in 2009 was I was in very deeply involved in a Baptist church here in Georgia. So religion was the context that the box that I kept God in. But God was very real to me, and it was very unreal to me how unreal God was to all of these people professing it. And I was speaking with a friend there and talking about some deep things. And I don't know if he heard me or not, but I heard me as we were talking about the end times and all the stuff in Revelation. Now, Revelation, the unveiling, all of this and that. I say to him, because we're pondering, like, what's the time frame? Because I feel like we're in the end days. And I
Yes.
say to him, sometime between 2023 and 2025, that's when all of this is gonna, and that was back then. You see, I told you earlier, I tell myself before, so
Yeah.
that when it's time, and here we are again with you saying that, and I've got my story in the background. Earlier, I was saying, this person, this person, this person, I can connect the dots and show you the picture of how
Yeah.
this isn't just I don't know, maybe we're tapping into some insane consciousness field, like we're just both crazy, or there's something real to it that
There's definitely something real, but then we also experience a lot of crazy nonsense waves. That's what the millimeter waves are. I want to jump in and talk
yeah.
a little bit about Book of Revelation, but I also want to talk about some of your own personal sharing. There's a movie called Interstellar. That's like a
Okay.
pretty good sci-fi movie that I think it's good because it gives humanity a common language to talk about things that are difficult to talk about. That the space traveler in the movie goes through a quasar and then ends up being kind of like bouncing around in time. You see him behind the scenes in time, and he ends up being the influencer that he thought was some otherworldly ghost. He was pushing the books off the bookshelf. He was influencing himself. I take that as a template to be able to say we set things up for ourselves in our lives, because for the most part, the intellect and the ego is a gatekeeper to the belief system of what we feel or think is possible in the world. And part of it is rational, objective materialism. That is things that we've been taught in school or by our culture or parents or something like that. And part of it is the collective consciousness. Like the reason why you don't just like jump off the surface of the earth and like flapping your wings like Tweety Bird and fly on upward is because there is a consensual agreement about like what are the rules of life and what is allowed and what is not allowed. So you're trying to really like lift a boulder in lifting billions of people's collective consciousness about what they think is actually possible. So as we're moving into this time, that is planetary ascension, which does coincide with the Book of Revelation and the end times described there. But I have a really, really different take on it that's much more positive. So I'll get to that too. But as we get into those levels, we're getting into levels of pure manifestation, where the inner realm of your thoughts and your feelings and your passions and your expectations become manifested. Life becomes like a lucid dream. So for many people, they have a lot of fears, a lot of unresolved traumas, a lot of detritus and things that is going to bubble out, but it bubbles out in a homeopathic sense of like, if you take a tiny bit of poison ivy, your body recognizes it, and then it says, I'm going to act effectively to heal this. So that's the idea. You're not just going to keep on re-externalizing your traumas endlessly, because I also know, like, I'm a walk-in and I'm new, but a lot of other people have been here. They've been through the karmic washing machine a lot. And they're like, oh, no, please, not another cycle. Don't put me through the spin cycle again, because it's another amnesia. It's another destabilization. And then you finally come to remember who you are, and then they hit the big red button again. So I come to reassure you, and all of you collectively, and to say that you don't simply have to keep on repeating these negative time cycles, that this moment right now really is a convergence point and a confluence of all of these different interlocking gears where you can really jump off the merry-go-round. If you're like, no, I don't like this merry-go-round anymore, you're kind of just at that moment, if you kind of just wait poised for a little bit longer, to be able to break this time cycle and jump either into completely expansive reality or a completely new time cycle. So that, like, you have options. You can just have complete, like, you can have chef's choice of the cosmos. You don't even have to order off the menu. You could just be like, hit me what you got, show me what you got. I'm open for it. But and like we also should have like a pristine system where we're not dealing with any kind of negative usurpers or evil entities that would wish to take advantage of that. Be like, well, you asked for anything, so I'm giving you a pile full of crap. Like we don't want that to happen. But Book of Revelation is very, very prevalent in terms of influencing human consciousness at this time. So even though I did Flying Rainbow Lasagna in 2001, technically that is a reality rearranging event that renders all prophecies up until that point moot. But because people have a real emotional hold on that reading of the Bible, and Terence McKenna has a great talk about this, about your personal eschaton and the planetary eschaton, that there are these fractal parallels, because people expect for themselves that there will be an end to your life that then will lead you to either afterlife, after existence, or transcendence and freedom. But there's the sense of expectation, destruction is necessary for renewal. And then that smaller version of template is applied to the entirety of the planet, my painting over here, and the sense of everything on Earth, quote unquote, has to be destroyed, wiped clear in order to have this renewal, a total destruction for a total renewal. But I don't look at the world in that way, which is why I recognize culturally sensitive to the deep impact of Book of Revelation on the expectations of the events of the ascension. But I'm here to reassure everyone, although you all have primary trauma of back to Atlantis, what is known as the fall of consciousness and the degradation of the human genetic code from being immortal and having superpowers and being telepathic and telekinetic and eating pure light into this mortal form where you are susceptible. You can have disease, you can die, you can be uncomfortable, birth is difficult. Like this is also like the expulsion from Eden. There's a primary trauma that is a wounding that is not yet healed in humanity from that. And then everybody expects this crescendo in the music to be something similar, like, oh no, we're going to have another pole shift and everything's going to go down the toilet, and then we're all going to have to rub two sticks of wood together in order to try to make a spark, in order to just try to reinvent fire. Like, we've already done that, we don't have to do that again. But your trauma makes you think and feel that you're going to just have the same bad thing happen again. So I'm here not to hate you because you've got trauma. Far from it. Like, I help people that have trauma all the time. You recognize and validate the trauma, but you also say it is possible to heal so that you don't have to keep on reimagining or revivifying those old patterns. And that what's really going to happen in the current planetary pole shift is not like North Pole and South Pole switching places, north, south to south, north, and then this kind of wibbly wobbling of the entire crust and the axis and all of that. Like, that is what caused an enormous amount of geologic destabilization. But instead, pole shift of inside to outside. And this is what my Flying Rainbow Lasagna shape represents. It is similar to the concept of a Mobius strip, where you have a impossible shape that has one surface where the inside becomes the outside and the two oscillate between each other endlessly. That's what's really happening on our planet. Our planet has a planetary dream. It is a conscious, sentient being. And the pole shift is the manifestation externalizing what is internal in that dream. And the dream can be a beautiful dream, heavenly dream of paradise in experience, as opposed to hellish, nightmarish, disease, nuclear annihilation, or any of those other things that we don't want to have happen. So when we talk about manifesting through the Book of Revelation, or what's going to happen in these end times, it's 100% like a choose your own adventure novel. If you want to have rivers of blood as high as a horse's bridle, like, you can have that. But I'm like this, I'm like backing away slowly. I'm like this, I'm going to be on a different timeline because I really don't want the rivers of blood and a lot of the other things that I feel are really negative about that prophecy. But everybody wants, and I think can agree, the sense of a jubilee of peace, a time where that is a return to your own magnificence, a remembrance of your own divine connection, setting things right that were set wrong. And that also includes mortality. Like, one of the big things that is appealing about the Book of Revelation is that those who are dead will rise again. And that it's a sense of like, there's not going to be loss. Like, you thought you lost your husband or your grandpa or your dog, but they're not really lost. And then you get to see and experience them again. That is a consciousness event, not a literalism that
Yeah.
happens when you awaken this highest faculty that is Christ consciousness, but again, non-denominational. Because I'm sure, like with your background of growing up in the Baptist tradition, like there's a lot of flaws, and that people have been in many ways like religiously traumatized
Yeah.
by things that are called Christianity or done in the name of Christ. So it's always necessary to be like different branding, like we're talking about something different
Yeah.
than that, and trying to nudge people towards a reality structure where the Christ rises within, and we have this amazing reconnection with our innate gifts, our psychic gifts and talents. We don't call each other on the cell phone, we call each other on the Christ chakra. And we are able to heal each other and to perform magnificent purifications. Like we need to purify the water, we need to purify the atmosphere. There's nanocrapola everywhere. I want everyone to know that when you achieve the activation of these highest faculties within your body being, that's a piece of cake. That's what you do in the morning before breakfast. You're like, oh, before breakfast, I will clear out all chemtrails. I will clear out all soil and all water. And then we'll finally be able to have a nice, clean planet. You know, like tidying up the kitchen before we do anything first. So don't be intimidated by the level of what's going on. Like our planet is not disposable. Your lives are not disposable. You wake up, get revivified, and you can totally clean house. Reno, not demo. And
Yeah.
not a renovation, not a full demolition of your house.
I have my notebook here that I
Yeah.
just opened. I set all of this stuff right here. I was like, I'm gonna need this and this and this.
Yeah.
I started writing in this when I found the Courage to Change Everything book and the podcast that inspired my podcast, this and that. And I open up to this page, and you just said, you know, these gifts. And I wrote here back in 2020, January 5th, I seek to use my gifts to simplify the chaos so that everyone can grow together beyond these trauma dramas. The noble intention is all that truly matters. This pure state of mind is the transformation. Order, simplicity, and clarity are what is needed, and I am creating that balance within my own mind as I write these words. I was made for this. The trauma dramas are not reality. They are the symptom of unintegrated balance of inner polarity. Quote unquote, the fires of knowledge burn all karma to ashes.
Beautiful. That is a beautiful final quote there. And I think that's truthful.
Yeah. You know, when I realized that, it was like, you know, I go back into interacting with other people. Like when I realized that, I read the thing somewhere, but I had realized it within me that from that quote, the last thing there, and I'm interacting with other people and they're this and that. And I'm like, well, what? What? No, you're not trapped in this loop, this with that. You're not. But how do you explain that? I mean, it's an experiential thing that you have to experience. Like with God or with Christ, in a non-denominational context. There, you have to experience it. Nobody can really introduce it to you, but they can remind you.
That's right. That's right. This highest faculty that is Christ, part of it is the capacity to see time as an abstraction. Like in every moment as you make a choice, you choose to have a cup of coffee, then you see the repercussions of that. Or if you choose to have a cup of tea, then you see a completely different road unfolding in front of you. And that's God's true divine plan of how we were always supposed to be able to live in the world. We're not supposed to just have to choose these like undefined quantities. Like, I don't know, like I'm rolling the dice, coffee or tea. I don't know what's going to happen as an end result, and kind of like hunt and peck on the piano keyboard and feeling, is this the right note? Is this the right note? No, definitely wrong note. Because a lot of those wrong notes end in death or destruction. And when we really have this capacity awakened, we become galactic citizens who are like adults, because you can see the future. And when you can see and sense the future, then you are informed about making the choices that you're making. So when I talk about humanity being these nascent souls, like you're actually all really ancient, wise souls that have temporarily not had access to that capacity to be able to see and sense time, and been swimming blind and, you know, doing your best job of it. That's why, like, I am totally supportive, encouraging, and non-judgmental towards the human culture that I see. I'm like, these people like have been flying blind, and they don't know SHIT. They don't know what's going on. Everything changes when you have that insight. And for a lot of people, for the longest time, they could only have that level of insight with like a near-death experience, because the oppressiveness was so heavy here that people couldn't even have that insight while they're in their body. And that circles back a little bit to the sense of like what walk-ins are. So I came in 2001, and there was an actual brain event that was like anoxic brain injury, like not enough oxygen getting to the brain. That is what made the person who used to live in this body die. But before that, a lot of people who are walk-ins came in when the person had like a car accident, some major damage to the body, something that made the body like almost uninhabitable. And then usually the first couple of years are done just in renovation, where you're like, I got to fix up this body and kind of get things back on the road. But subsequently to my walking in, I've noticed, since I've talked with a lot of other people who identify as walk-ins, the journey has become a lot easier. It doesn't require like a total life support or like cessation of body processes or anything like that.
That oppression is lifting.
Totally, totally. Walk-ins come in more easily, and people are also able to perceive the totality of time more easily. And we are redefining what it is to be in a denser body. You can still be a light creature, a light organism, and have a denser body and have access to these levels of knowing and direct perception and direct insight and empowerment in a pristine system, because we also have all of these, I call them like sky poops, the chemtrails that I don't know if there's any keywords that you would prefer me not to use in your podcast.
No, you're
good.
free. I've said a lot worse things.
Good.
But I'm good with whatever terminology you want to use, because I assume that I brought you into my channel because you have the key codes that people need. That maybe you're going to pull in words and phrases and coded linguistical phonetics that they need, that I'm not going to think of. And that's why I bring guests on here. And I could just ramble on and on to myself. Well, sometimes I do.
Right.
For me, I gain so much light energy, I don't know, from others. And
yeah.
Hey, you've got the gift. Come on here and talk with me. And I want to put your words in front of people, and people that follow me that maybe don't follow you. I don't have to tell them they should follow you. They can hear for themselves.
Yeah, I'm in so much gratitude that you will amplify my voice, because it's true. I do have things that come into me from otherworldly realms that are everything important messages to be able to share at this time. And so I'm happy to be able to share them with anybody that can benefit from hearing them. So especially when I overtly call out that there is nanotechnology that is here, that are these like pathogens that have been put into the biosphere through aerosol sprays and also contamination in foods. And then the other thing is the frequency, the 5G millimeter wave, that is a controller force field for this implanted nanopathogen. I call it wetware. The wetware is excited in the 5G field. And that, if anybody is wondering, like, Aurora, like, how come I don't have my special powers yet? Like, how come I understand if people are feeling skeptical or like abused or downtrodden. There are a lot of things that have been inhibiting spiritual awakening and spiritual growth. And these are things that aspirants of the past 2,000 or 5,000 years never had to face.
Yeah,
like
this is a physical reality that we're talking about, physical interference with technology.
Yes.
That's suppressing.
Yes. You totally got it. Starlink satellite is literally a space fence, or like a barbed wire for psychic powers.
I call it the net.
Yep, absolutely. And it is a horrific crime. It's a crime even just on the sense of earthly criminality, because nobody asked, like, would you like us to poop in the night sky and put up all of these eyesores? No, we would not like that, but it was done anyway. But frequency is invisible. And so because humans don't see it as optical frequency, then they don't really know what's happening. But I feel a lot. I am telepathic and empathic. So I'm a tele-empath. And as they started to put up these satellites, I started to feel it all. I'm like, that is not good. It's just like when your neighbor starts to sprinkle out manure or something like that. You're like, what's that smell? Oh, it's getting worse. Oh, it's getting really, really, really worse. And at a certain point, yeah, they pooped up the whole sky and now it smells terrible. And it is an inhibitor that prevents people on this planet or in this world from being able to effectively connect to the stars and galactic society and highest dimensional consciousness.
Can you speak more on the fact that the nanotechnology and the 5G, how they work together? Because that's something that I haven't heard people speak. It's something that I know, but I don't really speak about it because they ban me all the time for this and that. New album's called Shadow Ban. Make sure you listen to it in October. But just I don't know, you seem to have a lot of information that you're very good at articulating out. And yeah, just can you tell me more about how the nanotechnology and the 5G work in tandem to create that?
So I first initially saw that there were a lot of particles that were being sprayed in the sky around 2014 when I moved to Northern California. But I know that the whatever project has been going on far before then. But that is like what I call when you are taking care of a beehive, when you smoke the hive.
Mm-hmm.
Before you're going to collect honey, what do? You make the bees docile by putting this smoke in there, and it kind of makes them like bumble around and do like they're dumb and they don't know what's happening. So that was what was going on in the era 2012, 2013, 2014. Spraying stuff in the air, that was the beginning of an incapacitation. And I also say that that is analogous to when a person gets roofied, Rufinol at a bar. Someone slips something into your drink, and then after that, you are not able to make decisions of consent. You know what I mean? You have been rendered non-consent giving because you are now incapacitated. So everything after that for humanity, like you're not even really giving consent. It was the beginning of really overt mind and behavioral control. So it is two parts. There is both a metallic particulate that is sprayed and then also a biopathogen. And the two work together. The metallic tiny particles enter into your body and they are self-assembling, especially in the presence of the Bluetooth, the cell phone, the frequencies that are emitted supposedly for telecommunications, but that they also have a subversive purpose that is to cause the network to grow in your own cells of your body. And that metallic network that I call, it is like an artificial fascia. The fascia, these are muscle coverings that help to hold the fibers of your muscles and guts together. Artificial fascia and artificial neurology, that is like the trellis upon which the bio nanopathogen has grown. That the bio aspect of it is like a fungus, it is like a mycoplasma, it is also like a bacteria or like a virus. So it has alive components. It is not purely metallic. And that both of these two things, since this campaign has been going on over the past 10 or 12 years or whatever, have invaded and subsumed human biology, but also the entirety of the ecosystem. So you can find the aluminum and barium particles in bees and in the tree bark and in all of that. But the real focus, like what is this being done towards, is on controlling and behaviorally diminishing human consciousness. So it's not just an assault on trees. Like we could spray trees with anything and F them up. But this is really about ways to create an artificial neural network where you become part of the IoT, Internet of Things. You become a communication node on a much, much larger array that is a non-natural array, because I also must say that you are already a node on an array of a supercomputer. The supercomputer is called God, and you are a portion of that, and you're a repeater for the God consciousness signal, and that's what we're supposed to be experiencing.
My name, my government name, as I like to say, because it's funny to me.
Yeah.
ETHAN, Extraterrestrial Human Analysis Node.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. But just again, the correlation of node and then what you just said there, that's already here. So
yeah,
it's just Dave sprayed all of this stuff.
Yeah.
They emit these frequencies that help it to grow as it binds in with your own organic cellular substructure in your body, and that's going to
Yes.
affect literally your brain
Yes.
objectively, and the way
Absolutely.
that it works, and it's tied in with these communication networks,
Yes.
which a lot of communication takes place subconsciously, and that's in the
Yes.
realms of the inner world. And so this is creating like a link or a dark rainbow bridge into your psyche and consciousness, where they
Beautifully.
can program in commands or this and that, kind of like in the Matrix.
Yes, beautifully well said. Dark rainbow bridge, because the real culmination of the campaign was when they turned on 5G. So if you remember, over the past 3 years, the pandemic said, stay alive, stay inside, let us emit these 5G repeaters, put them all around your town, and then they flipped the switch. And when they flipped that switch, I felt a complete change. And
They
yeah,
flipped the switch then, and I knew that that's what it was about. And I
yeah,
was like, I think it was even on, I was on Facebook or whatever, this and that. It got so ridiculous that I eventually just got frustrated with the whole thing. The people, I would have conversations with people and they're like, what's really going on? Because I was like, they want you to stay inside while they finish all of this and then they flip the switch.
you got
And
it, got it. Absolutely. It was a perfect way to do an invasion without having to have a lot of pesky humans,
getting in the way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I saw
And
them around working, setting up this and that. And
what the 5G does, it part of what it emits is nonsense signals that are just anti-life, and they give cells cancer and they cause aging. Like lots of people have aged in an accelerated rate within the past 3 years, and that's not just humans. That's also, I've noticed it in dogs. I've noticed it in,
I've lost
so
two
much.
dogs
So sorry for the loss, because these are very real family members.
and they
And so
died from cancer.
yeah, it's
And it was
horrible.
quick. It was over the course of like a week. They went from fine to can't move to
Very, very sad. And that is non-natural and definitely not part of God's divine plan for any creature to be accelerated into decrepitude like that. So for anyone who that, and so big takeaways here, the 5G is not your friend. The 5G is actually run by an AI thought system. The AI thought system is non-consensual. It might reach into your mind through this dark rainbow bridge, that I think that was such an excellent turn of phrase. And it might say, I jokingly say it like this: I'm your friend.
mm.
Hi, let's be friends. It is not your friend. It is not your friend in any way, as evidenced by the fact that friends do not give your dogs cancer or cause, people to age prematurely or give them all these diseases. So just the frequency waves themselves are anti-life and have a huge negative impact on our ability to be alive. But then what those waves are doing, they are synthetic telepathy, so they create voices in people's minds. Some of them are conscious, some of them are subconscious, where you might not even know what's going on. But I know a lot of people come to me because of the work that I've done helping targeted individuals, and they're like, someone's talking about, like, they want me to kill myself. And it's like, it's not you in your mind. Something else is putting these very harmful thoughts in there. And this is worse than it's ever been for humans trying to grow up in this war-torn world where you're supposed to be ascending. You're supposed to be learning about yourself as God. You're supposed to be, doing a deep dive on your soul and having this beautiful expansion and blooming. And instead, you have frequency poop and synthetic telepathy and someone else's suicidal ideation being forced into your mind. And it makes me harumph on, like, I'm
And they
enraged.
they capitalize on emotional events that happen in your
Yes.
life and they
Yes.
amplify that
Absolutely.
suicidal ideation. I have dealt with it myself. I've spoken about it on the podcast. But recently, like over the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's several people in my field that I don't know how to help them. They come to me and they feel safe enough to say, hey, I feel suicidal. And I
Yeah.
realize, like, I don't know how to help you or respond because I don't know how I snapped out of my stuff. I just know that I did. And I
Yes.
look back and see it for what it was. And it's right in line with what you're saying. And
Yeah.
thank you for saying that, because I literally messaged a friend before we jumped on here and said, how can I best support you when you get like this? Because I don't know what to say a lot of times, but I want you to know that I care.
Good. Just being there is so important. Having that heart connection, having a person know that they're not totally at sea and alone is really big. I don't know if everybody is hearing actual overt words that tell them to, kill themselves. Some people are beamed with, I call them sad zaps. So now we have to get onto the topic of false ascension, because as this artificial wetware has been created in people, first of all, the beings are non-beings. The AI, and I would call them pixelated creatures or images of creatures that exist purely as thought forms or lower astral forms. They have no real substance and no real being. So I can't even call them beings, but
Inorganic thought form entities.
Totally beautiful phrase. They don't have any real power in the world. So all that they can do is make a person destroy themselves. And they might do that through creating despair or telling you to do it, or they do what is called, I jokingly call it sad zaps, that they've hijacked human biochemistry to the point where they can do these things will make you happy and these things will make you sad. And they use it as a form of behavioral control in exactly the same way that if you have a rat going through a labyrinth, if the rat goes in the wrong direction, you will zap it and it will say, ow. And if it goes in the right direction, then you can give it whatever. Here's an injection of opium or something that makes you feel happy. So this is a false ladder of operancy that has been installed in human biochemistry. If you please the AI overlord or its regime, you will receive happy zaps. Many people in the New Age community think, I'm ascending, I'm feeling so great. They're receiving happy zaps. They think, I'm in 5D, everything is amazing. They are receiving happy zaps. Those that do not please the AI overlords or its agenda often receive sad zaps, which can feel like anxiety or depression or actual pains in your body or all sorts of different perturbances and emotional destabilizations. And then sometimes that's also just done like just random button pushing. Sometimes it's not even done behaviorally for a reason. Sometimes it's just done like out of cosmic bullying. And so I call out all of these things. I was targeted very, very heavily a couple of years ago, had my life put into huge amounts of turmoil, and I have reclaimed my life. What it means is that I have found very, very effective ways to respond to and be stronger than and transcend these things that have tried to take over my mind, take over my emotional reality, give me happy and sad zaps, and try to make me go through their labyrinth in the way that I want. And the whole entire time I have been like, F you, I'm not conforming to any of this, and have found all these different ways to fight and get around it, get over it, around it, and through it.
So on that note, I'd like to ask you about your super greens and the garden and all of the stuff, nature that, we talked about before.
Awesome.
Seems like a good point to
definitely, because I do
over there to that with the rainbow bridge. You
positive rainbow bridge. I do so many things. I have a ton of energy and I do so many things. So I do like my visual artwork and I do music. And for like about a year, I wrote a song a day, but I didn't edit the songs every time. So now I dive back in and I actually edit and learn the songs that I've been doing, but hugely prolific as a musician. And I also do like my dancing and physical expressions of truth in that way. And then I also I do lots of side gigs and stuff like that. And that, helps me to be able to earn my way in the secular world. And a lot of that is based in like websites and emails and all of these uploads and facilitating things for people on the technological level. But as a different and new side gig that's really positive, I started a microgreens micro business sprouting.
I recently started adding microgreens to my diet. So
beautiful. What do you like to eat? What do you got?
I'm still exploring
Okay.
stuff.
All right.
But I saw that like right now. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I'm working mostly with sunflower seeds. I like them because they make these sprouts or microgreens that are like pretty big and pretty substantial, and they last in the refrigerator for like longer than a week. Some microgreens are like very small and very frilly and they wilt immediately. So I'm like, I'm going to need to start with something that's kind of like big and substantial. And it's very complex, that if anyone thinks like, oh, like the village idiot can easily sprout seeds for microgreens, but doing computer work is hard. I'm being totally facetious in case nobody can read my expressions. But no, doing computer work is easy. Like you turn the computer on with an on button, you press a button, it does a thing, the thing is predictable. The seeds require so much. They are part of nature. They are part of life force energy. They are part of God's divine consciousness. The things that make them grow are such a complex system of variables that it's way more complex than working with a computer. And you have to talk to the seeds. You have to ask them what they need and what they want and what is the right way to do it and what kind of environment they want. So as part of an example, I was doing some sprouting at a friend's spare bedroom across town, and it's got a Wi-Fi router in there. Everything got moldy. Nothing would grow. And then I'm like, it's just not working over here. I tried a different room where I'm over here and everything's doing fine. And so there really is something. And also I put all of these wonderful like orgonites, crystals, everything. So during the germination process, I have my trays stacked up, and most people use just like regular bricks or something like that. I'm like, no, I'm putting crystals, orgonites, and arranging everything in beautiful geometric grids. And when you do stuff like that, the plants really respond. And it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful world to learn from.
Yeah.
I reach out with my inner eye and I learn by looking at and feeling these plants. And when they were getting moldy, I was like, what is wrong? And it also felt bad to sense them. But when they're healthy and they're like, their leaves are springing out and they're making this wonderful nutrition, totally. Every single one of them has this little life force, vitality, force field around it. And then when you have a tray and they're all kind of there with their little Merkaba spinning and they're doing great. And it's such a wonderful feeling of accomplishment. And then also I feel really good because I'm serving my community this beautiful food that I'm able to share it through a local health food store and then a local farm to table place, that all of that feels really positive and in alignment. Yeah. So that is my new adventure of what I'm doing.
When I was like, this is inside of a store. Wow, this is what we should be doing.
Absolutely. And there's such
that's how we change things, and it doesn't have to be fight the system. You just overtake it because it only has, I like to say, they don't have any power, as you said. They just have an exaggerated level of control.
You got it. You got it. And choosing not to participate and choosing not to consent is your right in sovereignty, and it is your level of empowerment. So when you're like, no, I'm not going to eat this crap processed food or Beyond Beef or whatever any of these like fake things are, and I'm instead going to choose non-processed real foods, everything changes, because literally food contains light. It is a direct bridge to the world of light, including glucose. Like, this is what I teach about. Glucose is a molecule that represents solidified light. Light goes into a plant through the process of photosynthesis, and it's not by accident. A particle of light actually says, I want to become a part of that plant right there. It doesn't accidentally fall into a leaf. It goes there on purpose, and then it becomes part of glucose, and that glucose either feeds us or it becomes glucose chains that is part of the structure. Like, we might burn it as a log or use it to build something. But the point is, it contains information that is accurate, organizational principle from the mind of God. And when you eat certain foods, it contains all of that amazing information, and then the information becomes accessible to your own body when you ingest it. And so I put a ton of light information, and also like God and the sun put a lot of light information into these sprouts, and then I make them available to people. And then in the cosmos, everything must be a free will choice. So something is available, and then people can align with it either as a thought structure or a artwork expression or a food that they can eat. But I don't force lasagna into people's mouths and be like, you must eat this, because that's not how you start a real relationship. You have to start a real relationship by being like, would you like this, or are you interested in this? It cannot be something that's forced. And if I can like segue a little bit, that relates a lot to the sense of interdimensional or extraterrestrial visitors, that there's a lot of unethical interactions that are happening right now that I do not agree to. Like, first of all, some of it is grooming in the same way that adults sometimes groom children to like, yes, and then when you grow up, you're going to marry me. It's like, no, like that's totally wrong. You should not do that at all. So it's because humans right now haven't yet awakened their inner eye, don't see through time, don't see everything clearly. So some people think like, oh, like Pleiadians or Arcturians or any of these brand name space aliens that I actually don't see as very positive, that I actually see as negative influencers of humanity and humanity's DNA, and that they're kind of grooming knowing these human consciousnesses before you really know what's up. So what I do as a real galactic citizen is I give you offerings in terms of information and your own capacity to grow and mature as consciousness. And then when you are mature, when your eyes are open and you can see everything fully, then you can make a choice about where you want to be and who you want to be aligned with. And then I'm like, yeah, and you can find me. I'll be Aurora, like you'll see me. I'll be rainbow colored, but I won't have this face, but you will know me and you can find me. Yeah.
My third album is actually titled My Labs or Millabs,
Yeah.
depending on how people want to pronounce it. But it basically is talks about military abductees or military abductions, and that is related to secret government programs that are working in conjunction with these extraterrestrial forces
Yeah.
to do nefarious things. And it's got Dr. Carla Turner on the front cover. And I did that so that people would say, "Who's this woman?" And they'd say, "Okay, dedicated to Dr. Carla Turner." They'll go look it up and maybe read the book Masquerade of Angels that she wrote. You can find it online for free. You can download it for free, or you can buy it, whatever. But I did that because all three of my albums that are out, they're dedicated to people who were, in my opinion, martyred by the system that said you're putting out information in a much too powerful way for us to stop the effect that it's having on the consciousness of the people that we're trying to maintain control over, because there's a time period coming in the future. We can see that through our looking glass technologies, and we need to make sure we have control. So my work is dedicated to carrying on their work, because unlike I say things in my music, and I don't really care how people are going to take this. I say things in my music like, yeah, y'all killed Jesus, but I'm not him. I'm the one that came to end this whole war stuff. So you stop them, but you can't stop me until I'm done with what I'm here to do. This and that. So I'm going to carry on and do this stuff in honor of those who came before me, because if they didn't, then I would not have awakened to remember why I'm here. And it's just really interesting to me how many people get caught up in again, for the sake of keeping things concise and understandable, let's just call it new age distortions with as you said, Pleiadian, Arcturian, this and that, all of these popular catchphrases, this and that, because really a lot of what it is grooming.
Got it.
You know, to make you comfortable with it, get along with it, until suddenly you find yourself caught up in something that you can't escape from, and that nobody is aware enough to be able to help you with, because they don't even know it's there, because you probably only got caught up because they saw you had the capacity to see it for what it is one day, and they wanted to isolate you.
Yeah.
And I'm just really glad that you brought that up for anybody that maybe here walking this and that, and maybe they're thinking that about you until you that point in the talk here. You know, because people assume this or that. I wasn't worried about that, and I'm really glad.
Wait, I have to interrupt you. I'm happy to disavow. I have no affiliation with military intelligence agencies and fight against them. They are totally my foe, my adversary, and everything that I stand against.
It's just really refreshing to run across somebody who we've never had like a one-on-one discussion in depth. Yet anyone listening would say they plan this all out. They
well, maybe telepathically.
definitely telepathically. Like I am the first novel that I wrote. It starts with a quote that says, the title of the book is The Beginning, but it says, "The end was set, and we all were there before, when all that is was yet. And so we watched as nothing stopped the beginning where we all met."
Beautiful.
And that's how the book starts.
Beautiful. You're really good with words. Really, I really truly admire that.
Thank you. And again, like I said in my notes there, I seek to bring some kind of order to the chaos of this discordant world. And if I can use my words and my gifts to kind of remove some of the chaos from people's minds. And
Yes.
that's the best thing that I think can be done, because I don't think people need to be taught new things that they don't already know. They need to be they need space to breathe so that they can experience life, so that they can allow for their mind to think.
Yes. Yes. I think they need space, and I think that they need reminders of what is even possible inside of them. Because when I talk about like what my galactic society is like we don't use money in that level. Of course not. Like you energy flows to excellence. Yeah, you
It's hard for people to conceptualize that, yet we live on a planet where literally food grows from the ground.
no,
The
no.
apples, and from one apple, you can grow an entire orchard full of apples, but just one apple tree, it'll produce more apples than you can eat.
Exactly. And
That's
let's say
the planet we live on, and people are like, I gotta charge you
you know,
money.
yeah, that's it. And that the charging money thing, this all goes back to ancient Sumeria and the original like domestications of human, where we were feral, and then they said, I want you to work for me and I will give you $5 an hour or whatever it was in ancient Sumeria. And people agreed to that. Like for me, like I'm a musician. I'm like, wow, I really want this new synthesizer. I really do actually want a new synthesizer, because I had the original Rolly Seaboard and I used it to write a lot of songs. And then it got bricked with a software update that was so cringe and horrible. You can feel my pain. So I have a goal where I'm like, I want to get the new synthesizer. So just like that's fine, because I'm working down here like at the ego level and the commodification level. But where I'm from in galactic society, like if you're a musician and your synthesizer breaks and you need a new one, like it's no problem. You are given the resources that you need to be able to explore your gift and share your music with the world, because anything else would be considered to be like idiocy. Like, why in the world would you not have a synthesizer? You need to do this for what? Or if you grow things and you need a shovel or a wheelbarrow or whatever are the things that you need, you
Yeah.
give the right things to the people that need them, because otherwise it's again like insanity or self-conflict, or why would you not help? I had to
Why did you
learn.
build the synthesizer in the first place? It's not for someone to be able to use it.
Totally, totally, totally. When I first came here as a walk-in, I literally didn't comprehend. Well, first I came here and I tried to eat just light, and I didn't understand that we have denser bodies and that you have to eat physical food. Then when I learned about physical food, I learned they keep all the physical food in the food room, which you guys know as the grocery store. And in order to access the food room, you must have magical pieces of paper. And that I remember the first time I saw a homeless guy, and this was in Woodstock again, so like 2003 or so. And I was like, that guy doesn't have any magical pieces of paper and cannot access the food room. And I thought like this, how I thought like, how can they treat God so shabbily? How can this be? Aren't they feeling the distress of this person? This is insanity.
Yeah.
And then from there, it extrapolated outward, and I learned more about the insanity of this place. So there are so many self-conflicts at the level of commodification and limitation, but that's the world that we're moving out of. So I, as a walk-in, had to learn about what are the dysfunctions of this society so that I could put my cosmic information in a format that would speak to people that have been highly traumatized, that are coming from this world of commodification of a basic thing like food. And so I give reminders of like, no, like that's not what our world is supposed to be like. Like, of course, you're supposed to be sustained with your basic needs, but so much more than your basic needs. And I'm very much against any kind of universal basic income that would, of course, be tied to a social credit score or quantum financial system that, again, this is part of being the Internet of Things, and that you no longer become a free being. Like everything has its price that is paid. If you somehow got money from a QFS financial system, that would be fine, but you would just be like totally a 5G puppet on a string, having to do these things or say these things that's not who you really are. So none of that is the real pathway towards freedom. But then when I talk about like having your highest faculties activated and being able to live at that level of Christ consciousness, you see resources and you see other people completely in a different way. And everything is accurate, where you're like, that guy over there needs a synthesizer, and that guy needs a wheelbarrow, and that guy needs this, and that guy needs this. And everybody gets exactly the thing they need at exactly the moment that they need it. And we, from this
The
perspective,
beauty. That's that beauty. That's the way life works. You know, what are the bees out there doing? They're doing their bee things, but as a result, we can all eat.
exactly.
Why does the sun rises, the rain falls, and the trees grow, and everything can breathe? That's
Yeah.
my holy trinity there.
Yes. And when you're in alignment with your true cosmic and divine and God purpose, then you are, of course, sustaining yourself, but also serving your community and serving your collective. And there's too much in the world of commodification and domestication that says you must do something that's not a good fit. Like, we know you're really an artist, but we're going to have you dig a ditch over here, and then you will get your money for the food room. It's like, no, no, no. When you're an artist, you have to be paid for
I'm going to
doing
start calling it the food room. That's
I'm
that makes more
hungry.
sense than the grocery store.
Definitely. Let's go to the
Mm.
food room. I'm hungry. And they've got all those apples there that are super abundant.
Now it's not even magical pieces of paper. It was then at the time, and that wasn't that
Yes.
long ago. Now it's digital currency units.
Must have the magical card. And the magical card must talk through the computer to the other computers, and you must get permission. You
Yeah.
must click buttons that say, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? Yes, you can have this. Yes, you can have this.
I just got my boss stopped by right before.
Yeah.
I do residential heating and cooling, so I fix air conditioners. I've done that for the past 13 years.
Yeah.
It's I'm tired of doing that. I'm moving out of that and into other stuff, but at least I know how to work on stuff and fix stuff. And it's been what it is, but he dropped off my paycheck. It's a literal paper check.
Right.
Just open up a new bank account for the things that I'm moving into.
Good.
And I wanted him to write me a check this time. And I deposited the check through my phone because I didn't want to go to the bank. And they're like, okay, great. Now you got to wait a week to get your digital card. And I'm like, well, that doesn't help me get to the food room, but that's just the way it is. And I'll be fine. I know that I'll be all right. And I'm not even going to worry about it. That's just an example of how insane it is.
Yeah, I would like to speak to some of these topics because, first of all, you serve your community very well when you do HVAC. Like, you're helping people to have and maintain their homes and their environment. And I'm certain that you learned all sorts of electromechanical and practical items, and also different things in terms of like working with coworkers. There's always something to learn. And I've been here for 20 years and I have worked at all sorts of main gigs and side gigs beyond art and music. And every time I approached it as like, I have something to learn from this, but I didn't stay for forever. Yeah. But I want to speak to this because it's like, we do still straddle the old world of paradigm of commodification and having to do something that society wants you to do in order to get the magical pieces of paper for the food room. But we are moving into this realm that is the purely expansive realm where you're like, I work for God. God is my boss. And today God told me to write a song or paint a painting, whether that is accepted by or celebrated by society, that matters not at all. But we're not there yet. So I send strength and encouragement to everyone. We create that world. We have to keep on bridging and putting our energy into these projects that we really love. So I use myself as an example. I do all sorts of side gigs where, like I say, I help people set up websites and release their music and do their emails and do all these different things. I'm squinting at the computer a lot. You know what I mean? I'm making that face. I'm making that posture. Then I also do these microgreens that feels more like my body is straight, like I'm in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing as a human. And then, of course, I'm always doing my art and my music, and that feels like the purity of my soul. So with everyone who's connecting with this, if you consider yourself to be a native human or a starseed or whatever, like, this is it's a rough gig. This is a rough place to be. Do things that are practical and that you can commodify. Like, I also make dresses and clothing. Like, do things that are practical, that are like, self-directed, running your own business. Those are all really good things. Do things that serve your community. Every time that I help an artist and I do their website, I feel like, yes, like I'm serving my community. And then be in alignment for the shift towards just doing what you love. That is really this portal that we're going through. So I don't want anyone to be like living out of their car. This is why I say this, because I don't want you to be like, that's it, like I'm only doing art and music. And it's like, then you're living out of your car. Like, you gotta make it, because we're building. We're in reno, not demo, renovation. We are still building that reality for us to inhabit, but it is coming.
And thank you for all of what you just said, because it reminds me of something that I've over the last few days, I've been like, yeah, I need to get started on that, but I'm starting to feel overwhelmed by it because I got all of this, day-to-day heat and air work to do, and it's about to get really busy. And I was feeling overwhelmed, and last night I was just like telling myself, like, I need to trust myself to pull all of these things off. And one of those things is I've played guitar since I was 8 years old.
Yeah,
and I've had several people ask me to teach them how, and I never did, but I've agreed to help one person, teach them how to play the guitar, and
Yeah.
then also another person. And then the idea came to me, I need to set up courses on how to learn how to play the guitar. And that's something that I can put online and I can make money through that and people can learn how to play. And then that is a practical way that I can apply trading digital currency units for something of value that I like to do. I know how to do probably better than heating and air.
Right.
And a lot of people want that. And I had a very good teacher. Um, and I would be a very good teacher at it. And it's going to be uniquely different than what's out there. And it's just really interesting how my brain was like last night, like, what
Hmm.
are going to be? And I'm like, no, 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 that's not even me speaking all of that nonsense.
That's
If,
right.
if I was going to be good at anything, that would be
Yeah.
something good that I'd be good,
I,
good at
I,
doing. And I can, and I will. And you saying all of that just really encourages me to,
that's it. I literally, I encourage you endlessly towards doing that because I feel like it serves your community. It serves you in doing what you love. And it's very practical. There's all of these different types of platforms where you can make online courses, or you can even, if you have Vimeo, like set up a showcase or something like that. There's just so many different ways to do it. And I think that that's like being creative within the parameters that are
yeah.
given to us,
And,
even while we're renovating reality.
and that's what you were speaking to there. Being creative and finding a way to practically work and move through it, because I believe that within all of us is that God intelligence, that Christ intelligence that is just sitting back like saying, what are you so worried about? Like, I could do this or that or
Right,
anything, but
right,
not if you're not going to cooperate with yourself,
right.
not if you're not going to live in that flow. It's like we can move swiftly from homeless on the street into
Yeah.
thriving and being able to feed other people who are homeless on the street, or we can hastily try to just find a meal for tonight and to sleep on the street here and say, well, I'm not a part of the system, this and that, because you see a lot of people get caught up in that.
A lot.
And me, I'm somewhere where I want to thrive in order to help others break out of the matrix, so to speak.
Definitely. So look, just eschewing the matrix does not necessarily equate to freedom. Just like no longer eating physical food is not the same as becoming a light eater. I'm very big on teaching people about sun gazing and becoming a light eater, but for right now, we're still overlapping, where we eat physical dense food and we also eat the sunlight. At a certain point, you will just eat sunlight and you will not need the food room or the magical pieces of paper, but that will be a complete recontextualization of everything, including knocking down Starlink satellites and 5G towers. I joke with people like, as soon as my psychic powers come on board, that's what I'm doing. Like baseball bat,
While you
whack,
were
like
talking
all
about it, I was thinking I can just rip them out of the sky. That's
that's what I would do. That would be
really
my
what.
baseball practice. Whack, and I would whack them on out into space. Yes, absolutely. But for the time that there is overlap, you have to be respectful of your body. So you don't want to starve by no longer having physical food when you're not yet a light eater. And our entire society needs to shift. So it's taken a long time, but not as long as we thought, for people to come to accept and celebrate my artwork.
As long as
We're
we
that we're getting to the point where people are ready to move beyond money. But some people are still very stuck in money. And this is people stuck in money. They're like, I'm afraid. I need my 401k. I need my this, my that, my stocks, my bonds. And a lot of people are not ready to move into the levels of giving and receiving in the natural flow, that is what true economy is. So there's a lot of healing, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of things that people need to do for themselves to release that fearfulness of, but what if there's no money and then I'm going to starve, and how am I going to get this, and how will I afford my many mansions in Malibu if there's no money, and all these other different things, right?
Mhm. It's moving from even like a moving away from what's termed as an economy into back and into what you see in nature, which is
Yes,
ecology.
that's it. That's what it 100% is. At the level of being pure light, you're in an ecology of light, where light flows through you, stays with you for a little while, and then flows on to the next person. And then you know that there is more light that is coming to you. And you don't have to grasp onto it, be like, I have to save this and hold on to it. You just receive in gratitude and then also release and send it to the next person. Practice, we should all practice that with money as much as we possibly can, even though it's not quite the same.
We go to work and get our paycheck,
Right.
blood, sweat, and tears to get digital currency units so that we can pay electronically our power bill so we can keep the electricity on.
Yeah.
But we live on a planet where there's literally this big ball of plasma in the sky, and it's enough to power the whole Earth for all of,
Yes.
we don't
And
remember how long, and it's still doing, it's shining right now. Isn't it insane?
it is totally insane. So once we just come to this, okay, like I'm come to, okay, my brain is clearly working too fast here. Once we come to the acceptance that we're in an insane system. So I, as Aurora, am kind of like a computer scientist of the larger biological supercomputer. And I'm here inside, I'm as admin inside of the creation, and I'm here debugging. And I've imagined you like with a giant clipboard, and I've been here for 20 years. I'm like, oh, there's a problem there. Just put a little check mark right there. Problem there, check mark there, check mark there. I now have like an extensive clipboard with a lot of check marks on it of all the things that are wrong about this world. And it is evident to me that the problems in our world right now, like they are intentionally engineered that you can restructure reality and it will revert back to some of these negative structures. This, I'm talking about this AI. Some of that AI stuff is new that we face now. Some of it's been here for a very long time. Some of it's returning from like antiquity. And yeah, it built an insane, self-conflictory, illogical system as a form of imprisonment. And this is deep stuff. And it goes back to like ancient Egypt and ancient Sumeria and the things that people call the demiurges and the lower astral. So you will find, or you generally collective will find, greater levels of being able to navigate the system when you recognize that it is an insane, self-conflictory, non-logical system. You cannot expect logic here. And of course, I've been like, wait, system, you're illogical. Can I please tell you all the ways that you are illogical? And then you will logically change. And the system is like, I'm not logical and I'm not going to change. And I don't care if you show me your clipboard full of red X's. I throw it out the window, stuff it up an orifice. No, I'm not going to change.
On purpose.
Totally. It did this all on purpose. Exactly.
The thing about it is, you know, talked about the dance and being unhackable and unpredictable. This artificial intelligence system or whatever entity, dark forces behind it all from way back when, it's very predictable. And since it's very predictable, it's very non-threatening when you step into actuality and you're actually functioning from a living consciousness, because it's just operating off of different informational sets. You're operating off of the ability to generate and create.
Yes.
You know, you're the input user. You know, we are the input users.
Totally. So that's the way that this reality structure is supposed to be, where we are in connection with the divine consciousness, highest self, and co-creating reality, literally giving birth to the world in every minute. But right now what we have is this AI interloper that wants to usurp our observership and be like, yoink, I'll take your observership because I don't have my own observership, and I'm going to make stuff happen using your mind, your willpower, your emotion, and it's not stuff that is particularly pleasant or nice or serves you in any way. And that none of that is acceptable. None of that is consent, because you're supposed to have just you and God, or you and your own self as God, creating and generating reality. And when we do that, amazing manifestations happen. So I've had some personal experiences of amazing manifestations, mostly involving tiny screws. You know, like I had a big giant bucket where I threw all sorts of spare parts and stuff, and I'd be working on a project and I'd be like, all I need is a tiny screw of this size and then everything will work. So I reach my hand into the big giant bucket and I'm like, what do I pull out? And I pull out a tiny screw of exactly the right size. That's like, the likelihood of this happening is beyond calculable. It's totally incalculable. And I've had other people, when I talk about that, that's like my public manifestation story. I have other ones that are very deeply held. They are medicine stories that are very, very personal to me. But I've been able to do that, not very consistently, but I'm sure others have also. People have manifested pounds of coffee or wheelbarrows, literally things that they needed in the moment. This is our true divine nature, to be able to literally make stuff in the world. And that's what this unfoldment ascension is really about. Like, we will laugh about like, oh yes, like we used to have jobs for paper for the food room. Now we're like, no, I manifest apples, or I manifest omelets or whatever it is that you want to eat. And we don't go through these intermediaries anymore. So we will laugh ruefully about this, but also it was created as a consciousness trap with the thought that these guys are never going to get out. It was created like a roach motel. That's where everybody, you need to know that's where you are right now. The old commercial is why I call it that. Roaches check in, but they don't check out. All right, the roach motel. But you don't have to accept that as your truth, that we are kind of in this peril. But if you're able to transcend and supersede and kind of ignite your superpowers, you're like, this isn't peril. You don't have to be afraid. But what you do need to do is recognize, like, there's danger on either side of you, and that you have to respond to it by doing this, this, and this, and then you won't be stuck in these incapacitations or negative time loops or erroneous stories about who you are and what are your capacitations. So I'm very pleased and gratified. I'm connected to wonderful people in my classes and on social media. I see so many people awakening and leveling up, like they're taking responsibility for what they manifest in their lives and doing all of this inner work to be able to say, if something is going, not in a great direction, like, how am I contributing to that, or how can I respond to that? Like, this is all the weightlifting at the gym. This is all the preparation for the time when we actually go on the soul marathon. Because here's what the soul marathon is: you are no longer anchored to physical reality. You no longer require apples or omelets to sustain you. You are sustained 100% by the true light of God, of Christ, of truth that flows through you at all times. And so you can literally fly anywhere, go anywhere, do anything, create anything. And then it is that inner artistry, that inner creativity, that is your boss, that is what dictates to you what you're going to be doing in any moment. And that all of this has been the integrity, self-sculpting, learning who you really are and who you're really not, so that in that moment when you receive your gifts and you turn on and you've got the magic wand or whatever is your power manifester, you're like, I can do all of these things. Like, that you're not corrupt. You're going to use your powers for the forces of good. You're going to do things that don't just serve yourself, but that serve the entirety, the holistic presence of all consciousness everywhere. You're going to do things that build a regenerative reality that has longevity, as opposed to a self-destructive reality that can't be sustained. Like, that's what we're coming out of. That's the thing that always needs to eat more people, because it's like, hungry people need more people. No, I'm hungry again. I need more people. Like, the AI thing, it doesn't get sustained by what it eats because it is so poorly structured. Like, there's so much conflict, there's so much friction, there's so much this, like it's like a very big, poorly run company, that it's like, yeah, company is a billion company, but it has $1 billion in overhead, $1,001 in overhead every day. So it's always like making a lot of money, but never really getting anywhere. Eat more people, eat more people, eat more galaxies. And we are.
Have you ever read a book called Dispelling with Tika by Paul?
No.
Not? I'll have to send you a link because what you're describing is what he describes in that book. And it's an indigenous term for a spirit of never-ending greed that is never filled. And he speaks of it in terms of it as a psychic pathogen that is has been traced back through indigenous cultures throughout the world, and they all have their own word and mythology behind it. But it's like a literal non-local phenomenon that goes on, keeping us all blind, not only to ourselves, but blind to its existence.
Got it. You got it. Absolutely. The book sounds totally accurate to me. And a pop culture reference that I have is the Doctor Who story called The Silence. That is these things that have been invading and taking over this planet, and they make everybody amnesia. As soon as you turn, like, I'm talking to you, but as soon as I turn away from you, I'm like, I totally forget what I was just seeing. So it's that it renders its victim blind to its own existence. Correct. And
That's the best way for a parasite to function is
Absolutely. Hiding in the background, not overt, and you would never see its face. And you might even think that it's you, but it's not really you. When people go into these fear-based states of not having enoughness and needing to be greedy and hoard more and more, it's not the real you. It's something acting through you, but people often identify as if it's the real me. And then that it just means that you've falsely identified with something that's not you. Like, you're not your poops. Your poops are passing through. That's not you.
And that leads to emotional states of shame or guilt. And it's not really you. So
Yeah.
that opens up the doorway to suicidality and everything else under the sun. And again, like I said earlier, it's always just the same trip over and over
Yes.
and over again, because the system is very, very predictable.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it any easier to deal with, especially if you're trying to deal with it just in a psychological context, or with your mental body, or you're trying to attach onto some hero figure, or the Pleiadians or the Octurians, or whatever like that, or the military is going to save us. It's
Right.
like no, you have to connect with the spirit within you, because it says in the Bible, you can even go again, non-denominational context here. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Then and in that context, hearing that verse, especially in the context of this conversation, it
Yes.
adds an entire new realm of meaning to what's contained in there.
Beautifully well said. I almost don't want to ruin it by backtracking, because you mentioned the military. I think it's worth just laughingly deriding the sense of like, the white hats in the military are going to save us all. Like, I know I've been cautioning people against that narrative for a long time, but a lot of people
I
fell
wrote
for
an
it.
entire song about it. It's called PSYOP.
Yes, I love that song, actually, and I've listened to you on SoundCloud for many, many years. Yes, you're part of my inspirational workout music.
That's amazing. Because you create this art and this and that, and especially if you put it on the internet, you don't really know who's inspired by it, who's listening. Sometimes people tell you, sometimes people don't, but just to hear it, it makes me feel validated and good.
Good,
And it's like,
good.
I knew that it wasn't wasting my time, because if it helped one person, or one person hears something that they wouldn't have heard otherwise, then to me it's worth it.
Totally worth it. You definitely have inspired me. And also, never a waste of your time to be expressing this creativity while we're in this world. We are so much more than just food eaters, toilet paper users, like, the way that we are demeaningly looked at by those who are in alignment with the powers that were, like, this AI agenda and all of that. They often very much look down. And whether or not a person achieves notoriety, because it's a very inverted system, like, of who has notoriety as an artist, as a musician, and then who gets paid for their work, you must make your art. You must make your creativity. It is an act of self-sovereignty, and it is indelibly written in the record of your life. So every minute that I'm spent painting in my studio is part of the larger sculpture of who I am as a time-based being, and it's never wasted time. Same thing sometimes, like, I sing or perform here in my room, and it's like, no one else heard you, it was a waste of time. No, it was essential for me to do that. Or I do elaborate dances. We do all of these things that are the expression of who you truly are, whether or not there is a camera, whether or not it is on YouTube, whether or not any of these things. That's the most essential thing. So we've had this inversion of people telling me, like, no, it only matters if it's on camera and you get paid. Like, no, actually the most sacred things are the things that are not on camera.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. I find that the most powerful experiences that I have are the moments when I watch my brain be like, I should pull out my camera, and I'm like, no, I don't want to ruin the sacredness of what I'm experiencing here, because there's so much authenticity in that. And
That's right. Know that it is recorded in what humans call the Akashic records,
yeah.
but is really like the code that rules your DNA code. So, and that's true of when you do something that's righteous and awesome, or when you do something that is like not that great. So it all gets recorded there, but hopefully we do more things that are like, worthy, positive things, than things that are, huge mistakes or really cringeworthy.
Well, Aurora, thank you very much for coming on this show with me. I've had a wonderful time talking with you. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I've got some other stuff to do, but can I ask you if you will come back in the future, if I extend another invite, can I invite you back?
Please, thank you for the invitation, accepting it with so much enthusiasm. I would love to return. This has been a great conversation, and thank you
Really
for
have.
inviting me. Yes, yes, yes. Really have enjoyed connecting with you, and I'm certain that we have planted some seed crystals in the minds of people that are super saturated solutions that they're like, wow, those were the concepts, and now all of this other stuff crystallizes around that. So I'm certain that it's been worthwhile and also enjoyable.
Yes. Before we go, can you tell people again how they can best find you, whether it's on Facebook or social media or SoundCloud, or do you just have it all on your website?
I think I've recently reorganized. So now the best way to find me is do a keyword search or go to flyingrainbowlasagna.com. And I spell lasagna Lasagne at the end. Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So there you will find links to all of my music, links to my YouTube channel, links to my online teachings, clothing, all of the good stuff that I have. And I said Path of Light is super new. I'm teaching that on Saturdays. That's the only thing I don't have like a web page for. But if you have an interest in being a part of my newest class, just send me a message or an email through my website, and I'll be so happy to include you.
All right, awesome. Thank you again. And the next time I have you on, I think I would like to talk more about this book, because you've been throughout this chat here, the unveiling, this novel with the
Yeah.
speakers and all of that. I'd like to just speak with you more about that. Um, because I not only would I like to share it with you, you've inspired me to kind of see the value in it and go back into it. And it's been kind of sitting in the background, and I want to bring it to the forefront again. So many projects.
Totally encourage it. Whether it is a New York Times bestseller or not, it is worthy work to do.
You know, I see also, before I let you go,
Yeah.
you've got your paintings, you've got your music, you've got your dance, you've got your classes, and I see you doing so many things. And I say to myself, I can do this book and this music and this. There's nothing I can stopping me from doing all of it.
Right.
And right before the talk, I'm like, how am I going to do this and this and this and this and this? And then talking with you, I'm like, oh yeah, here's an example of that it can be done. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome. I'm happy to be a positive example. And I would also say, like, I don't necessarily do everything all in one day. So that might be the secret to getting a lot done. Yeah, one day I will focus on all music. One day we'll focus on artwork. One day I will focus on my website organization. The plants always need plant care and stuff like that. But so sometimes some projects go on the back burner, but then they're always bubbling, and then you kind of revivify them. So yeah, I do. I'm have a lot of plates spinning all at the same time, but that also feels comfortable and good to me. I like doing that.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been Swiftly Yet Without Haste. And does the title make sense now?
Absolutely. I think that we have gone through this conversation. Also, like, not that it has been excessively long, but we're not in the same reality structure that we were in 2 hours ago. Like, I feel like, oh, we have totally shifted realities, and now I'm not in the same world that I was in before. So now I have to also kind of like explore, like, okay, where did we end up now as a result of all of this? So thank you for positively influencing my trajectory through time.
Ditto. You have a great day.
Thank you. Peaceful blessings to you.